Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And She Thrived is here to provide you with the tools that are so much needed when going through a divorce. We want you to know that you are not alone and that you are supported, and to provide you with these resources so that you may become more empowered and a better version of yourself. We want to hear from you and build community with you. So please do let us know in the comments how we might better serve you. Now enjoy the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I greet you with the greeting of peace. Welcome everyone to And She Thrived. Today we are so fortunate to have Lisa Firestone with us. Hi Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
So Lisa is very special in my life because she is a teacher and mentor to me, and she has a lot of information and experience and knowledge about nonviolent communication. And I have benefited so much from my engagement with her, and it definitely sparked and motivated me to begin the series Connecting with Lisa, for this very reason, that I feel that this is information that is so valuable that everyone should be privy to it. Now, why I chose to call this Connecting with Lisa is it's a play on words, because ultimately here we are have this opportunity, this wonderful opportunity to connect and communicate with Lisa and learn from her. And at the same time, as Lisa will soon explain, that a foundational aspect of nonviolent communication is about being very much self-connected within, and also effectively communicating and in a way connecting with the other. So it's about connection all around, and she will definitely expand upon that. So welcome again, Lisa. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'll be just diving into a bit of a bio of Lisa. She's a California native. Lisa Firestone has served for 2 decades as a music director in New Thought spiritual centers in Florida and Tennessee. Named Best Solo Pianist and Best Spiritual Artist by Songwriters Showcase of America, her songs often weave classical piano roots with deep, raw, honest themes. In recent years, Lisa's written and narrated documentary-style videos exploring unconventional mysteries. These documentary-style videos have reached over 40 million views on YouTube. And her narration credentials also include audiobooks, meditations, and a PBS documentary. Currently, she's a certified holistic life coach and an NVC trainer candidate. In her coaching practice, she combines nonviolent principles with ICF competencies. And her website is bestnarrator.com, and I will link that in the YouTube video. I did also want to mention, which I think is very important when I engage with Lisa and what she brings to the table, is she's had a very traumatic health situation where she has undergone brain surgery for a malignant tumor. And she has fervently been on this healing journey, and she's making wonderful strides, and part of that healing journey is NVC. And if you would like to, as you said earlier, a few words about how NVC connects to your healing journey.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Samaya, for that wonderful intro. And I should qualify, the PBS documentary is actually not complete yet. It's coming up.
Okay, great.
So,
okay.
just for the sake of total honesty and transparency. Yes, I had in 2015, I was having small seizures. I didn't even know what they were. And then one day my horse knocked me on the head and I went into some pretty full seizures. Turned out there was a brain tumor, and it was large, and it was removed right away within, I think, 6 weeks. And then later, unfortunately, it recurred. And so 4 years later, I had a second surgery to remove it, complications, a third surgery, a fourth surgery. I just love to say it is by the grace of a higher power, I'm still here. And so I like to use my time wisely. And a big part of my healing process has been nonviolence, because it's not just about how I communicate, but how I hold myself and how authentic in how honest I am with myself, and holding myself and others with care in the process.
Wonderful. I look forward to learning more. So if you could explain to us all that, how did this all start for you? What is the appeal that NVC holds for you? How did you come to it?
Yeah. Well, well, I grew up in a family, in a culture where we just really didn't talk about feelings. And so, and I think, in fact, especially if they were not good feelings or what we would label as positive feelings. So one day it was almost one of those, like the book fell in my head kind of thing. I was exploring the library and I saw this book, and I don't know what guided me to pick it up, but it was a book by Marshall Rosenberg, who's the founder of nonviolence. And it was called Living Nonviolence. And when I picked it up, it was, the page opened up and it was explaining what empathy was. And I looked at this and I was thinking, my God, what is this? I didn't even know what empathy was or what it felt like. But as I was reading this, something in me felt like there was this is what I want to have in my life that I don't have. It was like a missing puzzle piece in my experience of living. So I began a journey that has been, I guess, 6 years in the making at this point, of just constant immersion in nonviolence and learning from trainers and people who offer their trainings around. So I think that's how it started. It was immediately, it was so funny because it was so messy in the beginning. Like, I would try to be empathetic and it was just like, it would just sometimes cause more problems than I would hope to. Like, it was just messy. But I finally gotten to a place where I can live it more now in how I am. It's not just something I do. It's become more of a way of being for me.
Like a practice, like a internalizing way of being.
It is a way of being. It's interesting. When I first found it, I thought part of what appealed to me about it was I could see, oh, this is how you can resolve conflicts. And I could see, because you can always see into the heart of another person and use language that would communicate in ways that were not offensive, but still very honest and authentic. So so that's how it led me to where I am. And it is, even, when I say a way of being, I'll even say like a spiritual practice. It's not, there's no dogma here. It's just spiritual in the sense that this is a way that I hold myself, and I value myself, and I value other human beings and other life, sentient beings.
And as you know that, were you continuing? So as I was saying, as you are aware that this is a website and a platform that holds space and supports Muslim divorced women. So I see that the union between this topic and our audience is that, wow, I find that very often, not always, but very often, divorce can be quite an overwhelming and traumatic event. And a person can almost she can have a sense of self that's lost, sense of identity is re-questioned. And so I find that the beauty of this knowledge with NVC is to become more self-aware, more self-connected, and that in itself is healing and therapeutic, and that these skills are, as you say, enable a person to live their lives more authentically and to, for example, be a better parent, because we will need these communication skills, this self-connection with our children, and even with our ex-spouses, or even moving forward and meeting somebody else in another subsequent marriage, etc. So that's just the connection that I have here. So that's the sort of like the background that we are on.
Yeah, and thank you, Samaya, for mentioning that. I'm reminded that your platform is other divorced women, and there is something really beautiful about being able to show up and be really authentic and hold boundaries that are healthy and what I call life-serving, as opposed to perceiving someone as right and wrong.
Mhm.
So that there are boundaries where we, for myself, what it's helped me do is recognize that I can I can communicate what matters to me and still hold someone else with care about what matters to them, and not necessarily build walls because of differences.
Okay, great. So would you like to introduce what is nonviolent communication?
Yeah. Well, okay, that's a loaded question. So I'll share. Nonviolent communication is, it's the name that was given a practice, uh, but that was started by Marshall Rosenberg. Marshall Rosenberg, back in the 60s, was a psychologist, and he was working with people who just weren't healing through talk therapy, going on and on and on and on. And what he discovered is, as he started to get, as he started to name what their feelings were and really identify the need that was driving their choices, something would shift and they would start to heal. So what he did is he directed his energy to these, what we call these universal human needs, and that everything that he recognized, that everything that we do, everything that we say, is in service of a need. So every choice I make is in service of a need, and that needs can be met with many, many different strategies. So if I have a need for a connection, there's many different ways for me to meet that need. But sometimes if I'm not aware of that need, I might do things that get stuck in a certain strategy. And so by really understanding and acknowledging the need, it opens up a whole world of choices. And so first of all, is that clear? Because I'll go on, and I know.
It is clear. If you're able to demonstrate what that would be by means of an example, that might be helpful.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, so if I have a need for connection and I'm with a friend, and my friend is busy on their phone, I might get really frustrated and irritated, and I might go into a conflict with my friend who's on their phone. And in my old world, I would just get angry and there could be fight or whatever. But if I'm really practicing nonviolence, I'll recognize, I'm having this need for connection, and identify that there are different ways to connect with my friends. So maybe this isn't the time. And even more importantly, I can hold a curiosity for what's important to them. So if they're on their phone, there might be a need for something that they're trying to tend to.
Mhm.
So rather than just get into an argument about how wrong it is to be on the phone, I'll hold myself with care and express a curiosity about what's going on for them. And then really the hard part, which is allowing myself to be vulnerable around what it is that I'm really wanting. So being, if I'm practicing nonviolence, it can be scary to really identify and name, this is what's true for me. If I'm experiencing what we might call an unmet need, it means that I feel vulnerable about something.
Right. And you use the example with a friend. This comes up a lot in marriages. For example, the wife might say, "Oh, are you going to go out and watch that game again? That's ridiculous. You always at a sports game, you always do, and but
Mhm.
what is she actually saying? What the need is that I want to connect with you. I really want connection with you.
Mhm.
That's being vulnerable. It's scary to say that. So then it
Yeah,
comes out like a criticism and an attack, you know.
exactly.
with-
There you are. Yeah. So communication, so here's the thing about nonviolence. Now, communication is really just a piece of it.
Mhm.
What's happened with the movement, and of course we see this in, with Gandhi and Martin Luther King on a more global scale, what nonviolence really looks like. But in the term nonviolent communication, it's a part of a deeper consciousness. So if I'm living in a state of nonviolence, there's three components. So the first thing is that I am aware of what is alive for me. Alive meaning this is what I'm needing, or this is what I'm wanting, this is where I'm feeling or not feeling. It's an awareness and an understanding of what's going on for myself.
Mhm.
And then the second component is that I express myself honestly, that I don't play games or behave, in our culture, we have
Like being
all these,
passive aggressive.
yeah, that I'm just direct. And like you just addressed, it could mean being vulnerable. And then the third component is to really listen empathetically to another person's experience, to hold curiosity and care, because they also have needs. And what really joins us is that all human beings share the same needs.
Mhm.
So these are three components of nonviolent communication. On a deeper and richer scale, there's also the whole concept of what nonviolence is in the big picture. And I have a little, would you like to see? I can share my screen.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me go to this. So this is from one of our trainers, who I greatly respect on the West Coast. Her name is Kathleen McFerrin. And she has this is also taken from Marshall, of course. The essence of nonviolence is these different components, beginning with the center, which is a consciousness of interdependence, so that I am connected to a sense of compassion in myself and also for others. And it's not limited to sentient beings. I mean, this is really about living with a sense of connection and interdependence with the earth. So up in the left corner here is the use of power. So how do I show up in my world? Do I try to take power over people? I think what Marshall discovered is that we live in a world where there is power over. Human beings have functioned from a power over system for millennia. And that's what is at the source of violence, is the need to maintain a sense of power over others. But as we start to get connected to our feelings and our needs, that starts to dissolve, because we realize that we all share the same things. So the use of power. So I want to approach from a sense of shared power, the use of language, which is over here on the right side, I'll get into in just a moment. And then this, how we communicate, which goes beyond words. And then, of course, our thinking and our thoughts. So at the essence of nonviolence, there's a consciousness of how do I choose to show up in the world? And am I in alignment with my values? And can I hold those values for everybody in addition to myself? Can I hold that care? So is that clear to start? Is that?
Yes, thanks. And if you would like to, beyond this, would you like to give an overview of the various topics that we'll be covering?
Yeah, sure. Well, to start, I love the basic form, which is over here on the right, which is, it's a little cut and dry to look at it. But these four distinctions right here can create a huge shift in how I communicate, a huge shift, as you know. And one of the and what nonviolence does is it has a whole list of what we call key differentiations. So it's, for example, if I'm speaking, okay, just addressing this form here, if I'm going to speak based on, if I want to speak nonviolently, I'm going to speak based on what I observe, what a video camera captures, not based on assumptions or how I evaluate something. So that would be the difference of, I see that you're using your phone, and versus you're ignoring me. You're just,
We're such a jerk.
yeah, that's an evaluation.
Right.
And another distinction here is based on how I feel. I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I'm feeling some concern and fear around this evening's event, and versus, or let me say that.
Versus I'm feeling ignored, because that's not a feeling.
Exactly, that's a story. That's a
Story.
thought. If I'm right, and this is a huge thing, if I want to create peace in the world and I want to see things as they are, I have to give up the belief that I think I know how they are. I think that's a quote by Thich Nhat Hanh, which says on some level, if I want to see things as they really are, I need to give up how I think they are. And it says it more eloquently.
So it's having some humility.
Yeah.
That I suspend judgment right now.
Suspending my judgment and my assumptions. Yes, and the willingness to stay open and curious. It takes a commitment. And it's not something I can do unless I'm really self-connected. So, and then there's the third distinction about the need. So universal human needs for rest, for nourishment, for play, for love, for connection, for friendship, for belonging, for a sense of community. These are the beautiful life-serving needs. And they are, as we tune into those needs, they are this beautiful thing that can really, they're really at what the heart of this consciousness is. And those are different from strategies like, I need you to do this, or I need this thing to happen. I need you to get off your phone. Like, that's not a need. Those are just ways for me to meet my need for connection. And as I start to recognize this, as we mentioned, a whole array of choices open up. So, and then finally, the distinction between a request and a demand. So if I'm making a request for something, I've got to be willing to hear a no. Versus if I'm demanding something, there could be punishment or consequences for something and that's not, there's no freedom and choice in that. And if I'm going to live non-violently in my consciousness, I always want to have freedom and choice for myself and for the other. Otherwise, it's power over.
Okay, good.
Yep. And then here, just at the bottom of the chart, honest revealing, empathetic receiving. The essence being, as long as I'm staying authentic and true, even if I'm angry because I have some unmet need, I can express myself, take full accountability for my role in what I'm experiencing. And my goal is to receive empathetically, to really recognize in all situations that we are all here trying to meet our needs. It's not always easy, but maybe a little bit simple. So I hope that's helpful.
Great, thank you. Would you like to give like a kind of like a, what do they call, like those mind maps of the overview of what we'll be looking at?
Yeah, sure. So, so I love to, so those little things in their essence, they're just concepts, But as we start to go and actually look at how this shows up in your life, I would love to explore the ideas of what is self-connection to start. What is self-empathy? Like, we understand empathy in our culture. We often hear, I'm an empath. I feel what that person's feeling. And in nonviolence, that's not always our goal. Our goal is to support someone in coming out of a sense of disconnection into a state of connection. But that begins with ourself. To support, beginning with myself, a state of disconnection from whatever is really driving me into a state of connection of, I see that this is what I'm needing. And then from that place, moving forward. So that's the first thing. What is self-connection? What is self-empathy? Another principle is what is honest expression? Like, what's the difference between me expressing honestly versus me saying, you're being a jerk, right? Some people go, I'm just speaking the truth.
So that would be identifying your own need and articulating that authentically without adding stories and judgments to it.
Without adding judgments. In fact, this is really a key principle, is if I'm really in a state of openness and curiosity, and I'm able to meet myself and another without judgment, that's where transformation can happen, when we are received without judgment. Let's see. So being an empathic presence. So what does it mean to really be an empathic presence? How can I be empathetic and hold another's cares in addition to my own without necessarily taking on feelings that I don't have the capacity to have? Another thing I'd like to look at is what does it mean to have a use of power, to be in a state of power with? And how is it that power over shows up all around us? How can I return to a state of power with, so that everyone's, ideally, we hold everyone's needs with the same care that we hold our own, even when they're behaving in ways that we don't like. And so that would, I think that's probably a good place to start. Mm-hmm. There are some distinctions. There's so many, as we delve into nonviolence, there's so many ways it can go. And it's really exciting as I've been able to watch you in this journey, like as you explore and find things and what's really directing you. It's like, as we identify that need, it's like a compass. Is that your experience? I'm curious to see.
It's just been so, it's like somebody literally shining like a spotlight internally, and you're like, oh my God, that's exactly it. So that's what I just wanted to mention to our viewers, is that right now it might seem very abstract because we're just providing a framework, it's theoretical, but the true beauty and experience of NVC comes when we actually see it in motion, in examples. And when that happens, it's really quite elegant. And the most beautiful thing being where you are able to articulate what it is that is meaningful to you, what is your need, what is your request, but in a way that is authentic, without any sort of manipulation or games or passive aggression or judgments or stories or and so especially when there when there are areas of conflict with people, there are difficult situations, then NVC is a very highly valuable tool or process, rather.
Yes, and I would love to add one thing too. I think that would be really helpful, is exploring when we explore requests, we often think of requests as like an action thing, but there are other kind of requests, like really a connection request, like really checking in to see, how is it for you when you hear me say this? I'm wondering what's happening for you, or a requesting for clarity, reformulating. I know you've seen my exercise that I took from Yoram, who was one of our trainers in Israel. Actually, I think he's in, scratch that, I think he's actually in Northern Europe, but he shows the different ways of listening. When I'm listening from a quiet, a quiet place, or maybe I'm reformulating to have some clarity and really stay with you, or maybe I'm listening with the intention to support you and connecting with your feelings and needs, and offering some of those words for you so that to help support you and to help clarify for myself. So there's all kinds of little things that can come up for this, but I hope this is helpful. And, in terms of what you were saying, also in nonviolence, there's a really beautiful thing. One of the things I remember very clearly was watching a mother using these skills and these processes with her child. And the difference was that the child was making choices within parameters of the mother's safety, what she had decided, but he was choosing and he was motivated to do things from a sense of self, as opposed to a sense of having to meet a demand, or if I don't do this, I'll be punished. So in nonviolence, there's a really important principle that punishment, I think that was the other essence that Marshall discovered, is people who are motivated to avoid punishment are not motivated for the right reason. So it's about learning motivation that comes from a sense of giving in a heart-based sense.
Yes, sounds great. Okay, so that is our overview. In the future, we'll be delving into individual topics, little short videos. So do stay tuned. Thank you so much, Lisa, for your time today.
You bet. Thank
Be
you.
well. Bye. Be well. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Goodbye.